Now, we promised you a podcast in front of the pyramids. What happened?
Well, the pyramids, we did go to the pyramids, but it was incredibly busy, so...
It was a bit kind of like, here's the pyramids, here's Charles and Camilla, off.
On the bus, off.
On the bus, on the next way.
Yeah.
So, we've got pictures of pyramids to show you. We've got Charles and Camilla in front of the pyramids. We've got millions of my own pictures of pyramids. I mean, it's one of those sites, actually, that really does sort of take your breath away when you first see them, wasn't it?
Yeah,
So,
my first time ever seeing the pyramids,
Yeah.
and they were really spectacular.
Yeah.
It was an amazing, amazing sight.
So I hear you ask, where are we? Well, that is the Mediterranean. We are in the, you can tell I've been Googling this, we are in the biggest city on the Mediterranean and the third largest city in Egypt. Where are we?
We're in Alexandria.
Alexandria.
We've just touched down from Cairo, where we were yesterday and for a bit of this morning.
And where were we on Wednesday?
Jordan.
And Tuesday?
Jordan.
There we go. So Jordan, Egypt. So welcome to Royal Tour, a podcast on the road. Well, actually a podcast abroad. I was trying to work out when did we last do one of these.
Well, this is the first Royal Tour in almost 2 years, so not for a long time.
We didn't do one from Ireland. We didn't do. I have actually no idea when we last did a podcast from a.
Well, we didn't do one from Israel either.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so the weather's a bit nicer here. So what have we got coming up? We have got news of our Queen, an interview with another Queen, Queen Rania of Jordan, even some news on Meghan Markle, who's been chatting away to Ellen DeGeneres in the United States. We've got full-on Charles and Camilla and what they did throughout their tour here. We've got pyramids, as we mentioned. We've got some news of Prince Charles's charity. We've got mosques. We've got
a baptism site.
A baptism site.
I was just quickly
Actually,
referring
this week
to my
we've been walking in the footsteps of Jesus.
We have.
I mean, it's not often you can say that. At the baptism site in Jordan, but also when we went to, the scene of one of Jesus's 7 miracles, where he cast some demons into a herd of pigs and then ran down the hill. It's the miracle of the guardian swine, I think it's known as.
Chris has been doing a lot of Wikipediaing this
things
week.
you learn on tour that you didn't know before you started the tour. So where should we start this whole week? I think we should probably start
at the beginning.
At the
beginning.
Did anything happen before we got here? No, it was kind of, so we got here, there was some Queen news we'll tell you about. She's been seen, actually, one thing we haven't explained to everyone is that the Queen cancelled Remembrance Sunday. So since we last did the podcast, there was that cancellation. We could quickly just run through that while we're here. So if you'll remember, the Queen cancelled everything when she got ill, right up until Remembrance Sunday. Definitely wanted to go. We probably told you on the podcast last week. Heavily inked in her diary, wanted to be there. On the Thursday night, they said she's definitely going. What happened on Sunday morning at 9:10?
Sunday morning,
AM.
as we were getting ready to catch our flights on the Royal Tour, we had a message to say that the Queen was unfortunately unable to attend the cenotaph, and you know, as we've said last week, it is one of the unmissable dates in her diary. She's missed it 6 times in her reign, 4 times on tours, twice when she's pregnant, and I think it was a source of deep disappointment to her that she was unable to go on Sunday.
So the explanation for the Queen not going to Remembrance Sunday was a sprained back. So clearly something happened between the sort of Thursday evening when they said yes she's going and Sunday morning when they said no she's not. And therefore, look at these pictures of the cenotaph. As ever, Prince Charles leads the nation in remembrance. He lays the wreath for his mother. He then lays his own wreath. And some very sort of emotional looking Prince Charles when he did so, but it's a very sombre occasion and no one knows why he looked so particularly sombre, but other than that he did.
He did, and he's been laying the wreath on behalf of his mother since 2017 when she stopped laying it. She now normally takes her position up on the balcony of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office.
And up on the balcony was just the Duke of Kent and Princess Alexandra, Queen's cousins. I could tell you more about that.
Please don't. Please don't do the whole family tree, otherwise that will be the entire podcast done.
The Duke of Kent, Princess Alexandra, Prince Michael of Kent, all in the same family, and their dad was a younger brother of King George VI.
The other thing we know is that the sprained back is nothing to do with why she was originally ordered to rest on doctor's orders. So the rest of the family took her place, but as I said, it's a source of deep disappointment to her.
Now we should fill you in on quite how that happens, because we were actually flying out to Jordan on that day, so we sort of wake up thinking, I need to pack my suitcase, I need to sort of get to the airport, I need to sort of fly to Amman. and you sort of had stepped away from your phone momentarily, and you
I
came back and it was lit up like a Christmas
walked
tree.
away for 10 minutes to have a shower, and I came back, and yeah, it had lit up like a Christmas tree.
Yes, there
but
was
there
like
we go. There's
tweets and text
never
messages, WhatsApp messages, phone calls from the news desk.
Yeah, royal news never stops, literally.
Quite so.
Never.
Not even to have a shower or to pack your bag for a trip
Yeah.
abroad. So anyway, we came here. Charles and Camilla actually landed on Tuesday with some news that we brought you. That now, there's often criticism, isn't there? Royal tours, why are you flying around the world? You complain about climate change all the time. Why are you doing it? I think most people would acknowledge that politicians, diplomats, prime ministers, presidents need to travel to countries. They need to do face-to-face meetings, and that therefore often involves air travel. But a difference this time with the RAF Voyager.
A difference and a first.
A difference and a first, which was?
That the RAF Voyager, which they travelled in on and have been using during the tour, travelled on sustainable aviation fuel.
Now tell me, Lizzie, what is sustainable aviation fuel?
This is actually Chris's absolute favourite subject of the entire tour, so I would hate to take this away from him. You go right ahead, this is all yours.
No, because I think if I start talking about sustainable aviation fuel, people might actually start switching off the podcast. But in other words, it's rather than traditional kerosene, you just mix a bit of organic oil with it, like can come from trees, it can come from cooking oils or whatever. Basically means that the pollution that the plane still emits pollution, but it's a bit less polluting. Less carbon comes out at the back end.
Yes.
Anyway, so he landed on this plane with SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuel, which can, in some cases, cut carbon emissions by up to 80%. Some people disagree. So that was the start. And then let's press go on Royal Tour Jordan.
So the reason they were in Jordan is to celebrate the kind of close ties between the UK and Jordan. There's
And the
very
two royal
close
families,
ties between
yeah.
the royal families, but also to celebrate Jordan's centenary.
Yes, Jordan, the Emirate of Transjordan, was founded in 1921 when the British and the French basically divided up the Middle East, and that's a whole other subject which we're definitely not going into in this podcast. but Jordan is 100 years old. It's obviously 2021 now, and there was a celebration of that, part of why Prince Charles and Camilla were here. But interestingly, it was the trip they should have done just before the pandemic set in. They were due to come to Jordan.
So it was set. There was a tour set for March 2020, which was cancelled because of the coronavirus pandemic. So they took elements from the programme that was set for March 2020 and put them into the programme this time around.
Now, tell me, Lizzie, who is the King and Queen of Jordan?
The King and Queen of Jordan, His Majesty King Abdullah II and Her Majesty Queen Rania Al Abdullah.
Now, what did Queen Rania fancy doing on Tuesday when she got up in the morning?
Chatting to you, I hear.
So not only chatting to me, but also she fancied a little drive with Camilla in the front seat in her Tesla, an electric car, so or right on. I mean, not many people, I'm sure, in Jordan that can either afford Teslas, or there probably aren't many electric charging points, of course. So that was quite a good image. If you have a look at this picture, if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're not, then remember you can always go to our Instagram page at ITV News Royals, where the Queen drove the Queen-to-be, we could say that, couldn't we, to this engagement that we were at, where we were doing an interview with Queen Rania. Managed to drive, now I don't wear them very often, but managed to drive
very
in
often.
a very, very high-heeled stiletto shoe.
She did.
Yes.
She did. Everyone was very impressed
Quite
by
high.
that.
There's probably fewer pedals in an electric car.
But one of the focuses for the whole tour is the climate, particularly for the Egypt element. Egypt is the nominee host for COP27 next year, and so, you know, including things like the sustainable aviation on the aircraft and the Tesla, the electric car, you know, threading that into the tour throughout reminds people sort of what issues that they are trying to address.
Yes, okay, so let's have a listen to what Queen Rania told us. There's a few things that we spoke to her about. One is the fact that Jordan's got a big refugee problem. 700,000 Syrians have come over to Jordan since the crisis there in 2011. Also, there's a big issue with gender-based violence, something that Queen Rania takes a lot of interest in girls' education, women's education in particular. Then there's the whole issue of the environment. Did you know, and I didn't know this, that Jordan is the second most water-scarce country in the world and might run out of water by 2040. Pause.
Pause to look down at notes. Hang on, is it there?
Might run out of water by 2040. Also, this particular region has a problem in terms of maximum temperature rises way above the 1.5 that they're trying to limit global temperature rises to. And then also we asked one queen to talk about the other queen, Queen Elizabeth, who at the time still hadn't been seen. So have a listen to our interview with Queen Rania of Jordan.
Our planet is a critical juncture, and even the most ardent skeptics cannot escape the fact that we have done some great damage to our planet, and we know it because most of us in the last few years have had first-hand encounters with the effects of the damage. We all know that if we don't do something soon, and if we don't take this issue seriously, we all stand to lose. The prognosis here in the Middle East is quite dire. So in our region, we're expecting warming to be at double the global average, with temperatures probably increasing up to 4 degrees centigrade by 2050. And as you mentioned, here in Jordan, we're considered the second most water scarce country in the world. And dwindling rainfall still hits us where it hurts. This is where the role of figures like His Royal Highness Prince Charles, who has been speaking about this issue for so long, even when people weren't listening. And I'm just glad that at this point people have actually started to understand what he's been saying for so long, and to understand the urgency of his words. And I think he's a leading figure in the fight for our planet. She's somebody we hold in really high regard, and she's somebody I look up to personally, and I think the whole world turns to her as a symbol of, just what it means to be a true figurehead and stateswoman, and just giving inspiration to the rest of the world through her discipline, through her hard work, through her steady approach to everything. I think we all find comfort when we think of her, and we're always concerned for her health, but she's a strong woman, and she, even at this age, is very active. We can all just hope to be as active as she is at that age. So, our best wishes are always to her, and hopefully she'll have many more years ahead of her.
Now, you heard Queen Rania talk about water there and how little they have of it. There was a particular piece of water that Charles and Camilla went to on that day, which is the baptism site of Jesus Christ.
The baptism site of Jesus, and there's some great pictures of them walking down to the site and bending down to touch it. But one of the things that the papers all picked up on was that we know that royal christenings use the water from
the River
the
Jordan.
Site, from the River Jordan.
Holy water, no less.
Holy water.
Because it's been blessed as well, hasn't it? So it's water from the River Jordan at the site where Jesus was baptised, and then blessed.
And a few dozen bottles of holy water are returning to the UK to be used in the Chapel Royal.
So on our plane, because we're on this plane as well, with the Prince of Wales and Duchess of Cornwall, on our plane is some bottles of holy water that will be used in decades to come for royal christenings.
Yeah, I did.
So don't drink it.
Don't drink the wrong
Someone
bottle.
brings down a bottle.
Don't drink the holy water. I remember covering Prince Louis's christening and them telling us all about the holy water that was used. So there we are. They're obviously running low.
There was some speculation in the papers, and again, just that will it be used for Lilibet's christening if Lilibet were ever to come to the UK? This is Harry and Meghan's child, in case you didn't know who Lilibet was. But no one's got anything to say about that, because we haven't even seen a picture of her yet, have we?
Haven't seen a picture. Archie was, of course, christened at Windsor, but Lilibet we still don't know.
Don't know, exactly. And we'll bring you some Meghan news later on for those of you who want to know what she said to Ellen DeGeneres on that particular show. And actually that sort of feeds into the water problem, because there's barely any water there, is there? I mean, it looked like, who knows? I mean, you can only speculate. Did they even have to sort of pump it in just for the visit for Charles and Camilla to sort of bend down and touch?
Yeah, so, it was very, very low.
Right. So. Jordan's got very little water. Mm-hmm. What do they have a lot of?
Plastic. It was unbelievable, the amount of plastic that we saw being driven to various sites during the visits. There's an enormous amount of plastic just strewn across the countryside.
Because we were driving out to a tourism site called Qais, where there's an ancient city that dates back to before Christ. I mean, it really was quite a phenomenal place. It's not as famous as Petra in Jordan, or of, where did we go with William?
Jerash.
Jerash. but it is another state called Qais, and it's right up in the sort of top northern corner of Jordan, where you can actually from there see the Golan Heights, the occupied Golan Heights. You can see Syria, you can see Israel, and the Sea of Galilee as well.
Yeah, it was a very
where
good...
the aforementioned pigs ran and drowned themselves.
Yeah, it's a very good visual representation of where Jordan sits within the region. It's always sort of, it was described to us as a beacon of stability within the region, but you can also see where it's positioned, why it has taken in so many refugees because of the countries and places that it's surrounded by.
And actually diplomats were saying to us actually that one of the reasons of the trip that Prince Charles and Camilla came to Jordan was actually it is a stable country in a very volatile region, and that's why places like the West, UK, America pile so much money into Jordan, because it's important to them that this country is at least reasonably stable when you've got Egypt, Gaza, Golan Heights, Syria, Israel, Beirut, Lebanon, all around it. So that was one of the key reasons, or one of the other reasons for the visit. You mentioned plastic. Now, someone else who noticed it a lot, Richard, come in here. So Richard Gaisford is the correcespondent. Come in there, have a sort of central position. I'm going to hold this microphone. You can share this. This is such good technology.
This is sort of the one ITV family we have here, because Richard is from Good Morning Britain.
Good Morning Britain on ITV, ITV News.
Yeah.
Now, you like us. Well, welcome to the Royal Tour, for example. Let's before we get on to plastic, what's your view on Royal Tours? You don't do them as often as we do, but
I've done a few, but I mean it's not my normal beat. And I have to say, I mean there's a huge amount of organisation, an awful lot of people running around to make it happen. This one, perhaps the most chaotic of all of the ones that I've done in the past.
That's interesting, because with the part of the world we're in, and
I think
things
it's an element of that, and you know, certainly there was things that happened that perhaps we didn't expect, stuff that didn't happen that we had hoped for. A lot of time stuck in traffic. Timings going.
But then there was a lot of time of one not being stuck in traffic, and then I mean, how nice is a convoy? You have to say, if you're going to go and visit the pyramids in Egypt, and you don't want to go through
in a convoy.
Traffic.
Yeah. The great thing about Royal Tours is you do get to travel in convoy, but the one rule, Chris, is never miss the bus.
And what did we do at the pyramids?
Oh, you certainly missed the bus.
We missed the bus.
I think you were telling me you were trying to refer back to a time.
I was referring back to another
If
time.
you missed the bus, stand next to the Sphinx and
stand
watch
next
the
to
sun
the
go
Sphinx.
down.
We had extra time at the Sphinx and the pyramids, and we'll come to that in just a moment. We're still in Jordan at the moment, talking about plastic
pollution. It's shocking. I mean, absolutely shocking. So we were just ahead of you. We had to set off really early for our Good Morning Britain broadcast. 2-hour drive out of Amman up to Qais. And my goodness, as you got towards the city called Erbil, which is just in the north there, the most incredible sight across the fields, because you're not seeing crops growing, you're seeing plastic.
Not growing, sinking into the mud.
Strips and strips of plastic.
Everywhere.
Some of it was agricultural, but a lot of it was just plastic bags that had blown out of waste
plastic
tips.
bottles, water
plastic
bottles
everywhere. And we stopped and we looked and we saw that instead of picking it up, they were ploughing it back into the ground.
You know what, I thought that. I saw a field. We did on the bus, didn't we? I saw a field, and it just looked like they were just churning it up and putting it back in. It was like a blue hue, wasn't there, across the countryside at times?
For pretty much the whole journey, the whole route, I was thinking there's
really
plastic everywhere.
And I'll tell you what, the last time I saw it, I was in Malawi with Prince Harry, on his Africa tour, the last tour that he did as a royal, and a very similar thing there. And I presume that just people in some parts of the world have to care about how they're going to feed their families tonight, and don't therefore think about what's the impact of this plastic pollution in the next 3 or 4 decades.
Well, the people we were with were saying the poorer the countries become, the less people care. And over the last decade, it's become a real issue. I mean, a serious issue.
Single-use plastic is like, we all think we recycle it. Well, who knows where it ends up in any case? But you just think in Jordan we were quite shocked, weren't we?
No, it wasn't a good look for a country that's so historic and holy. You said you were walking in the footsteps of Christ. I mean,
as were you because
I was just following you.
This is this famous story of where Jesus banished the demons from a man or 2 men, depending which bit of the Bible you read, banished it into a herd of pigs who then ran down the hill and drowned themselves in the Sea of Galilee. I mean, you were walking at that spot.
I was there, standing and looking at it. It was quite powerful, actually. I mean, it really is amazing. I mean, you're standing, we stood in that amphitheatre too, to think that all of those amazingly beautifully carved seats had been there for so many thousands of years.
That was an amazing sight, wasn't it?
Qais. I think also during Qais there was a lot of walking and a lot of steps up that amphitheatre. You have to remember, Charles and Camilla are 73 and 74. These tours are full on from start to finish, back-to-back engagements, a lot of walking and in the heat. So they really do very well.
Know? They're not working very hard. They're on holiday out here. It's kind of not like that at all, is it? I mean, actually, as a non-royal correspondent, what do you say when people say, "Oh, they're just on holiday"?
No, quite clearly not. I mean, and the fact is, they are fitting themselves into a very tight schedule. They can't get to do what they want to do. And I'm sure, looking at that case trip in particular, Charles would have liked to have spent an awful lot more time there.
Of course,
I mean, it's
without us being there.
Without us being there,
Exactly,
of course.
yeah.
And this turquoise mountain project that he has, restoring and preserving this site, I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And you could tell just by watching his face how interested he was in absolutely everything he was hearing. I mean.
Well, I'm not 74 or 73 yet, but I found it quite sort of hard carrying this man's tripod, the thing that the camera's stuck on at the moment. It spent most of the trip on my shoulder, and I found that
Up
quite
those
hard.
steps.
So it's like being a pack horse.
It was hot, and it was hot.
Yeah.
There was also the classic tree planting. I don't know if you saw him do this, but Prince Charles planted a tree
with one shovel full of
case, always 3 shovels, and always the little pat and the good luck tree. I don't know if you saw it.
He always, did you know this fact about Prince Charles? He always touches a tree every time he plants one and says good luck tree. It's become kind of tradition now. That's what he does, which is quite endearing in a way. He cares about every living organism on the planet.
Wishes it good luck on its
I think the
journey.
one thing we learned is that he always does 3 turns of the shovel.
Because someone tried to stop him after 2 and I heard, always 3.
Always 3.
Always 3.
So while you're here, should we whiz forward to Egypt? Because
sure.
I've never seen the pyramids before, have you?
I have seen the pyramids, but from a distance. So 2011 I was here, so 10 years ago for the revolution, and things were pretty difficult at that point, and to get to the pyramids I had to go on a camel. So this time it was just a bit easier. In a convoy. But so getting
dangerous convoy at times, I have to say, but at the speeds we were going around those corners in a minibus, but
we were lucky too because we were there for sunrise for Good Morning Britain's broadcast, and it is a stunning place to be by yourself before the crowds arrive.
Well, actually, why don't we have a look at that Twitter video you put up? What's your Twitter handle?
At Richard Gaisford.
At Richard Gaisford. So have a look at this Twitter video that you put up. As you arrived at the pyramid site.
So we're just driving.
It's had like 60,000 views last time I looked at it.
Yeah, it was just absolutely crazy. I mean, it is one of those things you think, you pinch yourself and you say, "Am I really here?"
Yeah.
You know, you've learned about the pyramids at school all of your life. You know, it's this iconic landscape that you're suddenly arriving at, and you're driving past, and then standing out and within touching distance, touching the pyramids.
Yeah. I was staggered by how massive they are as well. They're huge. My favourite fact is it takes 2 million blocks to build. I'm rounding down. 2.3 million blocks to build a pyramid.
Blocks that you've just knocked off. That was a lot of effort to put them in.
It's incredible.
4,500 years ago. These
2,500 years before Christ. It's like
amazing.
Yeah, and they were. You can tell we've been doing a lot of research. They were the tallest structures apparently in the world until they built the Eiffel Tower in the 1800s.
It's just incredible.
And that says something, doesn't it?
So you think about carrying one of those blocks.
Yeah.
And getting it into position, and yet positioning one of those blocks on another, amazing.
Yeah, well, it's beautiful. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you very much.
I can have my microphone back to myself. Let's stay on pyramids while we're there. I think it's such a beautiful site, isn't it? So this is Charles and Camilla basically then moving from Jordan on their plane with sustainable aviation fuel, landing in Cairo.
Yeah.
And then the few events in Cairo that they did, the mosque, for example, we could talk about the mosque in a minute, but let's stay on pyramids. And they saw there's 2 big pyramids. If you haven't been to the Great Pyramids of Giza, 2 big ones and 1 little one.
Yeah.
Or say little, it's still quite big.
Still pretty big.
And then the Great Sphinx.
And then the Great Sphinx. So they arrived, they saw the pyramids first, and then they walked all the way down the site, ending up at the Great Sphinx. And they actually got to go into the pyramid. You can probably see the pictures now. They went to go in and have a look. Before they went down to the Great Sphinx.
It was and actually, what did we learn? That the pyramids were covered in limestone, was it?
Yes.
So they used to be sort of shiny, but now you've got the sort of the undercover, the undercoat.
The undercoat, yes.
The undercoat. The 2.3, the aforementioned 2.3 million blocks.
And the prince has been privately in the past, but it was a first for the Duchess, so the first time that they've been together to see the pyramids, which was nice. And they were very, very good and patient with the media yesterday. Throughout the walkthrough, they stopped on numerous occasions to have their photos taken at different points. And it's always difficult, isn't it? Because whenever you've got Charles and Camilla there, you've got like the Minister of Tourism with them, you've got the chief guy who's in charge of the site, you've got a few translators around them, plus all their staff and all the rest of it.
it's very difficult. I mean, you might see a shot of Charles and Camilla on their own. It's very difficult ever to get a shot of them without anyone else. And a lot of the palace staff, but also the press as well, are constantly trying to clear the shot so you can actually see them on their own.
There's not only the sort of entourage, but there's also an enormous number of press, because when we travel abroad, for every UK representative in the pool, there is a matching person from the host country. So
Yes.
In Egypt, for every broadcaster that goes into the pool, there's someone from Egypt with us. So the press pack is quite large on these events, which makes getting nice clean shots quite tricky.
I was just distracted by a couple of stray cats that sort of ran through here, but you won't see them because they're sort of on the floor and you can't see them. But they're just generally taking an interest in what we're doing here. Maybe they're going to watch the podcast later.
We were lucky, I'm just bringing you back to the room, we were very lucky because we were there when the sun was setting down over the pyramids and the Great Sphinx, so it was really special.
Have a look at a sort of a combination of my pictures, they're on my Twitter,
we haven't had a Twitter plug until, gosh, 20 minutes
Lizzie's
in.
Twitter.
At Lizzie ITV.
At ITV News Royals, if you want to see some pictures, we put up a ton of stories and pictures, but that's where you'll see all the best images if you're not watching this on YouTube.
And when they'd finished walking around the site, they went up to what was called the Nine Pyramids Lounge, which is a lounge with an amazing view out over the pyramids. And there was a UK-Egypt reception held where the Prince gave a speech, and he'd managed to link the pyramids to the issue of the environment, didn't he?
So tell me, how does one link the issue of the pyramids built 4,500 years ago with the current challenge that we face from climate change, Lizzie?
Because the Prince is essentially saying that if man can make pyramids and something so extraordinary like that, then surely they can come together and set their mind to fixing the problems with our climate.
In other words, if your ancestors can make these ginormous structures and align them north to south and everything else that you have to Google some pyramid facts, and there are many of them out there. Surely modern day human beings can come to some form of agreement on how to deal with the issue of climate change, the one that the aforementioned Queen of Rania spoke about earlier. And actually Prince Charles' staff was saying that he believes that everyone in this particular region needs to work together because of the issue of climate change and water scarcity. And what do we know about Egypt? It's the host country of
COP27.
And we've just had COP26 in Glasgow, so a lot of Prince Charles's focus in the speech we're about to play you was about, you Egyptians did this amazing thing with these pyramids. Now it's time for Egypt to take the baton in the fight against climate change and lead the world into this COP27 summit, which is next November, and everyone's looking to Egypt to try and step up to the plate.
As incoming and outgoing presidents of the UN Climate Summit COP, I hope it is more now apparent that we have to be the custodians of a truth our ancestors understood so well, that we are, in actual fact, part of the natural world, not separate from it. And above all, it is our duty to do all in our power to protect nature, rather than testing her to literal destruction, which is what we are doing at present. Gathering by this wonder of the ancient world, we are reminded of miraculous feats. Indeed, Herodotus reminds us that Egypt has more wonders in it than any other country in the world, and provides more works that defy description than any other place. It defies the imagination to consider how your ancestors, with rudimentary tools, were able to construct such massive and magnificent edifices and align them almost perfectly north to south. The fact that they could do this reminds us how profoundly they understood the sacred geometry of nature. The fact that they did so, the fact that they did do this reminds us that they understood this knowledge was essential to life and death. Like our rather more modest ancient stone circles in England, the pyramids remind us of a connection to our planet that we have over time forgotten.
That was Prince Charles speaking at the, what's it called, Nine Pyramids Lounge?
Nine Pyramids Lounge.
Basically, yes. I'll tell you an interesting story. He was meant to have a pyramid lit up about here in his speech. And if you just watch that on YouTube, you'll notice that you couldn't see a pyramid about here in his speech. It's because the lights went out just before he spoke.
There were two lit up.
There were two lit up, but not the one behind him.
No.
So there was just a big darkness here. But what you should have seen is a pyramid about there behind Prince Charles. But anyway, these things happen. Things that are out of everyone's control. We're going to tell you about the Queen now, not the Queen that we interviewed this week, but the Queen that we all left behind in the UK, because you'll know we haven't seen her for a very long time, not since she cancelled that engagement, last seen on the 19th of October, wasn't it? At Windsor.
Last seen in person on the 19th of October for the Global Investment Summit. But she has done, while she's been doing light duties, resting on doctor's orders, we have seen her a couple of times conducting either virtual audiences or she gave out an award, but we haven't seen her in a face-to-face official engagement since the 19th of October.
So I'm imagining that someone at Buckingham Palace kind of said, well, we could not film this and just tell everyone that this meeting happened. Basically, the head of the UK military, the chief of the defence staff, was retiring, or is retiring, and he met the Queen. Now, they could have just written a little note and said, he's retiring, the Queen had an audience with him today, thanks very much, goodbye. But actually they invited not only a stills camera but a television camera in to film the moment, presumably because they must have had a conversation about, shall we show everyone that the Queen is fine after not seeing her for 2 weeks.
Well, not seeing her first, we know that she's been resting and only undertaking light duties, and then we hear that she's had to pull out of the cenotaph, which, as we said earlier, we knew was of deep regret to her. So, and with that back sprain, so to see her after both of those things was reassuring, I think.
So why don't we play you the entire video? It's only about 45 seconds long. It involves the Chief of the Defence Staff, I think, from memory, General Sir Nick Carter.
Yeah.
Comes in the room, speaks to Her Majesty the Queen for a little bit, and then obviously the cameras are asked to leave. There is a guest appearance from a Dorgie, the Corgi / Dachshund mix.
The Dorgie called Candy.
The Chief of Defence Staff, Your Majesty.
Your Majesty.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, you. Good to see you.
Well, it's rather sad that it's yours.
I know, 8 years as a Chief of Staff.
This is a long time.
It is a long time. In fact, the only person who's done longer, I'm told, is Lord Mountbatten.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh.
So I'm quite surprised by all that.
Now, on the same day that the Queen did that, Prince Charles was just doing a little interview, and he was asked about his mother's health.
He was, as he talked about various subjects. He talked about the trip, he talked about COP26, he talked about the climate, but there was also a question about his mother, and obviously there is concern from the public because she has been under the weather.
I think actually the question to him about his mum happened before that video was released in any case, or before we knew about the video releasing. But anyway, this is what Prince Charles said about his mother's health on that day.
Once you get to 95, it's not quite as easy as it used to be.
Thank you so much.
It's bad enough at 73.
And whilst we're taking you up and down the timeline a little bit, it was in Jordan where he spoke about, because the aforementioned Jordan and the aforementioned 100th anniversary of Jordan, he spoke about his mother's close ties that evening, didn't he? And how she and the former king, so the current king is King Abdullah II, the previous king, his dad, was King Hussein. And what's the interesting fact we learned about King Hussein?
King Hussein came to the throne in 1952.
How many wives?
No, that's...
Yes, it's correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah. And that's what Prince Charles was about to say. He had 4 wives, and wife number 2 was actually from the UK.
Suffolk.
It was Tony from Suffolk. Or Antoinette, I think her name was.
Antoinette.
Also known as Tony. And he met her in Jordan when they were filming Lawrence of Arabia, and she was working on the film set. And met the King of Jordan, ended up marrying him, becoming the Queen of Jordan, and is the mum of the current king.
Good family tree.
I like that.
Good family tree.
So anyway, this particular King of Jordan, King Hussein, had 4 wives. The British one was wife number 2. Anyway, I digress.
You digress. Links between
Prince Charles was talking
Jordan
about the links
and the
between
UK.
Jordan and the UK, and the whole 1952 thing that Lizzie just mentioned.
I feel this friendship in the most personal of ways, as Jordan has always been a part of my life. His Majesty King Hussein came to the throne in 1952, the same year as my dear mother, the Queen. They would be of great mutual support to each other through the decades ahead.
Now, when you come to a country such as this, one of the things Prince Charles likes to do is promote interfaith dialogue. He did that both in Jordan and here in Egypt. It basically means you go to somewhere like a mosque in Egypt. Clearly, that's Islam is the religion here, but also to promote the sort of ties between various different religions. He did that at this really impressive mosque called Al-Azar.
The Al-Azar Mosque.
In the
It's
centre
a
of
really
Cairo.
beautiful building in the centre of Cairo, and
Yeah.
it's one of the oldest Islamic buildings in the world.
Yes.
And back in I think 2006, when he last visited, he was awarded a doctorate from the university there.
So he came here with Camilla, and these things we've told you before are quite organised. You're sort of like, you have a set number of cameras filming them here. You have all the sort of local and other media standing behind a little rope. We've spoken about the rope that we hit. We spent a lot of time
The
standing
fixed
behind.
position rope.
And what happens? General chaos.
Absolute chaos.
Everyone trying to get photos of everything else. So we'll play some pictures right now of.
There was one
Charles
big
and
melee
Camilla
of
sort of
media
arriving
with
and-
Charles
yes.
and Camilla in the middle
Yeah.
of it.
If these pictures
yes.
aren't very steady, then that probably explains precisely why. So that's what happened at the mosque before he had that meeting. And then that was the first day, wasn't it, of Egypt?
First
Because
day
that
of
was before
Egypt,
they went
yeah.
to the pyramids, and the speech in the Pyramids Lounge. Something else happened yesterday, which wasn't here, wasn't in the UK, but it was in, I don't know where they record the Ellen show. Where do they record the Ellen show? California?
I
New
think
York?
so. California,
Anyway.
I think. It was Eastern time, so yeah. I think
Okay.
so.
So Meghan Markle, or Duchess of Sussex, did an interview with Ellen DeGeneres.
She did.
We were trying to watch it here, because we never
Over
stop
dinner.
working, as you know. Well, obviously we have to eat food. We were trying to watch the Meghan interview as it went out live. We were trying on our phones. We tried 4G. We tried Wi-Fi. In the end, as you'll note, I put on Twitter, had no idea. So I left it to people on Twitter to tell me what was happening in that interview, and I went actually and filmed a very nice time lapse of the River Nile. Why don't you have a look at this lovely time lapse, which was on my Twitter whilst Meghan was talking to Ellen. I hope you like it. It's only about 5 seconds long. Anyway, so we talk about the
Let's
main.
talk about Ellen. Yes.
Yes, Ellen DeGeneres is no longer. She's stopping the show, I believe.
I think so,
I don't know
yes.
much about US media things. Ellen DeGeneres was interviewing the Duchess of Sussex. Now, I suppose the reason we were going to watch it is like, what's she going to say about the Queen? The last time she sat in front of a US TV host, whoa, wasn't that big news? The allegations of racism and leaving the royal family and mental health struggles and potential suicide and the bullying claims and that was massive. This time, not so much.
This time, not so much. It was very soft, very chat show, very light. There was a skit in there where
what was the skit when she sort of went outside?
I think she was wearing an earpiece, and Ellen was trying to sort of tell her what to do. It's a kind of thing that Ant and Dec, if you're a British viewer,
Right, yeah.
would do on their
With
Saturday
a
night
celebrity
takeaway. I
kind of
think.
thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Sounds a bit awkward, but
so it was very
Right.
soft. There were no difficult
yes.
questions.
But what we learned is that
and
Lilibet's teething, parenting 2 children's quite hard. Here's some pictures of the aforementioned show. But I don't think there's really very much to tell you.
No, she talked
like
a
a
little bit
celebrity
about,
interview, wasn't
she's been doing a lot of work on paid parental leave in the US. She talked a little bit about that. She talked.
And some people are wondering whether that's Meghan making a sort of bid for a sort of political position in the future.
Yeah, well, she
Has
said
been spoken about
previously
before.
that the issue is not a political one, it's a humanitarian one. She's tried to steer away from the idea of politics, but
Oh, there's 3 cats coming now. Do you know why there are 3 cats coming? The cameraman behind the camera has started eating, and 4 cats.
so you might be able to hear.
Oh, look at that kitten.
them.
We have to get that kitten in shot. Do you want me to hold your sandwich while you do it? No, don't put it on the floor because they will eat it. Let's have a look at
Oh, no.
look at this little kitten here. So they've come because there's food. And 1, 2, 3 and a little baby one.
It's very
There we
sweet.
go. It's not every time in this podcast that you get to see a small
We've brought you pyramids
kitten.
and
Pyramids and
cats.
kittens. I mean,
What more
do
could
need?
you want?
I'm also now holding the aforementioned sandwich. Let me just hand that back to Ben. Go. Right. There we go.
There we go.
What was I talking about before we got
Ellen.
distracted? Ellen DeGeneres, yes. Anyway, that was it really.
So
We
it
told
was
you
a bit
everything.
of fun. I think there were no sort of no controversy in it. She didn't say anything about the royal family. So
there's another cat over there. No, 2 cats. 3.
Chris,
1, 2, 3,
concentrate.
4, 5, 6, 7 cats now. We can open up a
petting
cattery.
zoo.
Oh, that one's trying to get in the bag. There we go. Anyway, I can be very easily distracted. Right, where are we? Ellen's. Right, okay. That's Meghan done. We've seen time-lapse pictures of the Nile.
What do you think your highlights of the tour have been?
Highlights of the tour. I do love a convoy, but the highlight has to be the pyramids. 110 million%. It was just the most stunning thing in the world. I know that the site in Case in Jordan was really very interesting. The amphitheatre was amazing, but I've never seen a pyramid before. And seeing the Great Pyramids of Giza was quite something.
It was really special. It was just really lovely to be back on tour for the first time in so long. But I agree, the highlight
Charles and Camilla
for me was the pyramids. But I also was really, really impressed by Queen Rania. I thought her interview, she was really eloquent, really engaging. So to you?
Oh yeah, sorry. Exclusively for ITV.
She did.
So that interview with Queen Rania, we played you earlier on the podcast. No one else had that interview with Queen Rania. This is why you need to follow our podcast, why you need to watch ITV News, why you need to see what we're doing on social media, because the Queen Rania only speaks to very selective media.
She does. But don't you agree that she was very? I thought her answers were really good and very engaging and very.
Yes.
By good I mean. Well thought out. They were long. They were.
Yes, I mean she spoke about the Earthshot Prize and being with William. And she spoke about the impact of climate change, the water scarcity, the sort of
And even when you asked her about the Queen Elizabeth, she didn't just say, "Oh yeah, we sent our best wishes." She gave you a proper,
someone I look up to personally,
well thought out
answer.
I was impressed by her.
Yeah, so they're the 2 highlights: Queen Rania, Pyramids of Giza.
Yeah, I think those would be the highlights.
So
and just being back on tour has been really, really lovely.
Yeah, indeed. So we bring you this podcast, as you can see, from Alexandria. Rather busy road. We'd be closer to the sea, but there's a very busy road down there. It's also really, really windy. So we just thought we chose this sort of olive tree for you instead. But we haven't really, to be fair, we haven't had a look around Alexandria, which is, as I mentioned before, the biggest city in the Mediterranean. We've only literally just arrived. Camilla's got an event over here with a massive biblioteca, huge building just behind the cameraman over there. Camilla's got an event there imminently, and then kind of tour wraps up, we fly back, land.
Ready for next week. And next week we are celebrating
what are we celebrating next week?
Birthday.
Oh,
birthday, or is it
anniversary?
An anniversary.
Whose?
Ours.
Oh.
The podcast will be on its 100th episode.
100th episode. We've done 100 of these.
100 of these, yes.
Well, here's. If you've got loads of time on your hand, you could go
I'm
back and
I'm
do
pretty
100,
sure it's
99,
next
98,
week is 100.
Oh, that's amazing. Actually, there's another anniversary this weekend, I forget. It was actually the Queen's first anniversary without Prince Philip, of course. And,
it is the 20th of November. You'll remember last year we saw that photograph of them at Windsor Castle where they'd spent so much of the lockdown sitting on the
74th.
This would have been their 74th, but last year for their 73rd, they were sitting on the sofa together reading a card that the little Cambridges had done for them, weren't they?
Indeed. So anyway, listen, thank you for watching. Thank you to Queen Rania for her contribution. She can come on this podcast anytime she likes. Thank you to Prince Charles for his contribution and his speeches. Thank you to Egypt and Jordan for hosting us in their beautiful countries. And thank you to Richard Gaisford from our colleagues at ITV's breakfast show Good Morning Britain. So, we could have brought Sky, and actually Sky was standing over there doing a live just now. We could have invited them in, but I'm sure Rhiannon from Sky might have got into trouble with her bosses for taking part in an ITV podcast. Anyway, we will see you probably in London next week. Thanks for watching, and if it is the 100th episode, we'll do some counting. We can have a party, a cake.
A party. See you next week.